To create this painting, you need a hairdryer, some white acrylics watered down, a couple of jars of clear water, and obviously some watercolour paints. You also need to use quite a large paintbrush. Well, you don't need to, but it makes it easier to layer down the first layer of water. So the first thing you need to do is dip the large paintbrush into the water and just coat a piece of watercolour paper with the water, and that makes the watercolours disperse really lovely over that paper. Start with any blue you like. Usually in watercolours you're supposed to start with lighter colours and then go to the darker colours, but this is a very quick painting. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in. You just make sure that you layer lots of pigment from the watercolour onto your paintbrush and don't go over and scratch the paper. So get lots of paint on that paintbrush, a couple of little swipes on your paper, and you'll see the watercolour just disperse beautifully because of that layer of water. Do the same with another colour. Make sure you spin your paintbrush around and around in that watercolour pan, and then just a couple of swipes over the top of your paper to get that pigment nice and rich. And you don't want to create little paper balls on your paper by going over and over with the paintbrush. That's what happens when you overwork the paper and the paint. So I've done about 4 different blues on this, I believe. I start off around the edge and then just work my way in. I'm not too careful, as long as I can get some lovely rich colour onto that paper. I usually finish off with a darker colour around the outside when I'm first doing the blues onto the paper. I've found another blue here that's going to add a bit more depth to the piece. I also add a little bit of purple, because if you look at true photographs of nebulas, they have lots of these rich, lovely colours in them, lovely greens and reds and purples and oranges, things like that. So it's always nice to add a little bit of colour to the picture besides just the blues. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is get some lovely clean water onto the end of my paintbrush, a clean paintbrush, and I'm just going to splatter it, because you want this painting to have movement. You want it to look like it's moving. So I've added plenty of clear water to that to make it quite liquid-like, and then I get the hairdryer to move that around so it gives it that movement feeling. It's messy. Be careful. Wear aprons. Have nothing special around your painting, because it does splatter a bit and get quite messy. I've obviously got a really large puddle of water here, so I just get like a cloth, it's an old tea towel actually, and I just pat up some of the excess water. And then I continue to use the hairdryer to create those lovely nebula bursts that you see. And it also goes quite transparent, so it just creates lovely effects. Sometimes it doesn't move the way you want it, so I just get a little bit of water at the end of a paintbrush and just encourage that movement just a little bit, and I make sure that I blow the hairdryer in the direction that I want the paint to move to. So you just keep on doing this until you're happy with it. You can always pat up a little bit more paint if it doesn't go the way you like. You can even at this stage add some more paint if you want. The thing is not to be too precious about it. Just keep on using the dryer. If you've got a paint dryer, that's great, but a hairdryer works better because it creates that movement. I'm still doing some movement here, just encouraging the watercolour to go in the direction I want by adding just a little bit of water to it. Just keep on working that hairdryer until it is totally dry. It has to be dry for the next step. So it's just about dried here. We'll have a little look and see what it looks like when it's totally dried. And what I do, I rub my hand over it bravely, but I did totally check to make sure that it was dried all over. So the next step is using the watered down white acrylics. Now this can be tricky to get the right consistency, so it's got to be runny enough but not too runny that it just goes too clear. You want to be able to see the white still, so it's just a matter of messing around with it. When you do the splatters, you hold it firmly in your not, you know, so I'm right-handed, so I hold it firmly in my left hand and I do the tapping of the end of the paintbrush just to create those flicks. When you first start, I recommend do it away because sometimes those white blobs are way too big for stars. So just soft little flicks. And I've only loaded up my paintbrush once for this one, and there is the finished piece. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and I would love to hear what you think of this video. If you've enjoyed watching this, please click like and subscribe.